Hey guys, so before I get into my interview with Jocelyn, I just wanted to do a bit of an intro and give you guys a bit of a background story before I continue. Um, Now I don't want this interview to be just about psychotropic drug withdrawal. It's so much more than that. Whether you have a gut injury, you have a chronic pain condition, you have a psych med injury, whatever, this is relatable to absolutely everybody. Okay. Even if you're not sick, even if you just have some hardships in your life, the truth of the matter is that I was sick long before 6 years ago when I hopped off the benzo. I had been through a lot of loss in my life, and I made a lot of bad decisions, poor relationship choices. I was sort of in a job I hated, and I just felt directionless. I didn't felt like I didn't have any passion in my life, no meaning, and I just felt like I was just coasting through life, you know. And it's ironic to me that it took having a severe chronic illness to really pull me out of that hell, that different type of hell. Now, when I look back on it, and I went to the doctor to sort of seek help and get put on a psychotropic drug, that drug represented so much more than just a capsule and a chemical concoction. It was sort of, in a weird roundabout way, as devilish as it was, a gateway to a new life. I got pulled out of this matrix like world and thrown into a harsh reality. But, and I'm not just speaking for myself, so many people I've spoken to over the years, literally probably dozens of people feel the same way, that all the knowledge I've gained, all of the strength, the purpose, the meaning, there's so much that I've gained from having gone through all that I don't regret a second of it. Even if I don't, make my way through this. I'm not saying I'm not going to make it. I know I'm going to make it, but we never know how much time we have left, right? And if something were to happen to me, I wouldn't regret it because I've gained so much from this experience. There's so much purpose and gratitude you could gain from suffering. And people need to know this. You need to know that this can't be for nothing, right? So I'm really hoping that you guys could take something away from this interview because it means a lot to me. And it's really coming full circle having Jocelyn on my channel. She's someone I listened to when I first got sick. And she really helped me not feel so alone when I was going through the darkest days of my life. So let's get into it and hope you guys enjoy. Thank you. So, Jocelyn, I just want to thank you so much for coming on. This is really coming full circle for me having you on my channel. I really appreciate it. I was wondering if we could just start by you discussing your story a little bit and give a little bit of a background to what happened to you.
Yeah, well, my story begins with Ambien, actually, which a lot of people don't consider that to be a benzodiazepine or a psychiatric drug, but it really is a benzodiazepine. I work now with the Alliance for Benzodiazepine Best Practices, which is a nonprofit, and they classify anything like Lunesta and all of that as those kinds of drugs. So I was put on that really initially when I was in the hospital with my son on bed rest. And the doctor was telling me I needed my sleep. And I was trying to avoid a lot of other drugs that they were trying to put on me, but I wasn't really sleeping. So I did take that and I cold turkeyed off of it that first time. And I didn't realize at the time that a lot of the things I was experiencing that I thought were the effects of maybe the magnesium drip they were giving me or just being on bed rest or whatever were actually adverse effects to the Ambien. The withdrawal process was kind of brutal, but I managed. It was okay, and my son actually went through withdrawals. But it wasn't until I had my daughter, and then I was in the hospital with her when she contracted meningitis, that after that I couldn't sleep. Obviously, looking back, that was anxiety, but I couldn't sleep. And I was nursing her, and I was told Ambien was safe again. And for some reason I believed that. And so I was put on that, but this time I could see it affecting my baby. because I was nursing her and she was sleeping all the time. And I thought, no, this isn't okay. So I cold turkeyed off after about 5 days or so. And that just sent my body into this spiral. I didn't know what was going on. And I was losing weight rapidly. And obviously, I couldn't sleep. I really couldn't sleep now. But now it was weird things like I couldn't read a book, I couldn't watch TV. I couldn't stand up without feeling like I was going to pass out. And for the first time in my life, I even developed suicidal thoughts, which I'd never had before. And I've been through quite a bit in my life. If you read my book or anything, like I've been through a lot in my life and even lost a child, and I'd never experienced anything like that. I was told over and over again that I had postpartum. I didn't believe that because I wasn't depressed before. But eventually I just kind of gave in because I didn't know what else to do. So I was put on Ativan or lorazepam, which is like Ambien. And so I was put on that for anxiety, but what it did was it stabilized me during my withdrawals. And then I was put on Effexor, and then that was switched out for Cymbalta because, of course, I was told I had depression. And I stayed that way for about 3.5 years, even though I kept trying to taper off the Ativan because my doctor told me to get off that first. I just couldn't ever seem to get off of it. So finally I got off the Cymbalta, experienced just insane brain zaps and crazy anxiety that I didn't even know was anxiety. It was so physical. I implemented a low glycemic diet at the time that really helped me with that. The physical part, I started learning cognitive behavioral therapy and just other techniques that really, I could almost just feel it rewiring my brain. And so I felt really empowered at that point, like, okay, I know about this, I know what to do. I'm going to just taper really slowly off of this Ativan now, and I'll just take it easy. And in my mind, taking it slow meant maybe cutting it by an eighth and waiting for a few weeks and then cutting it by another eighth, like my doctor told me to. But that didn't work so well. The first time I cut that pill, even just by an eighth, I was as symptomatic and as disabled as I was when I cold turkeyed off of it years previous to that. And then I cut it by another eighth, and I descended even further into just suffering, horrible suffering and incapacity. And at a certain point, my husband had to kind of take over because I couldn't even get online, obviously, and do any research. And he discovered that there were all these support groups for people going through this. And he said, oh my gosh, Jocelyn, these people are all like you. And they say you need to taper really, really slowly, maybe get over to Valium and taper that way. So I became educated through these online support groups. I did switch over to Valium. It did kind of stabilize me, and I began a micro taper at that point. And as I was going through this process in these support groups, I would just see people come in day after day who were right there on the cusp, who hadn't really screwed themselves over the way I had. And I wanted to just really help those people to get on the right track before they made all the wrong choices because their doctors were telling them to do this or that, or their family was pressuring them to do this or that. So I started working as a moderator in a support group, which is one of the only things I could do during that time. I was so really just incapacitated, but I could kind of get online and communicate with people in a dark room where it was quiet. And eventually it got to the point where I felt like I needed to do more. So I started, with my husband's help, of course, because I couldn't do a whole lot cognitively. I started putting out videos explaining this in a way that was relatable, that friends and family could understand, so that people had kind of an advocate or a voice for them. And then eventually I felt like we needed more because you had a lot of misinformation out there that was affecting the decisions doctors made and just the general opinion that people had about this, and how people were being misjudged. And so I really felt there was a need for a nonprofit. So I worked with some other people in the community and co-founded the Benzodiazepine Information Coalition. And it's just kind of gone from there. Now I'm working with the Alliance for Benzodiazepine Best Practices, and we're the ones who literally wrote the book on benzodiazepines for doctors, published through the Oxford Press. And these specialists go around and actually do continuing medical education for physicians and for providers. And yeah, just trying to change the face of this. But I've taken a little bit of a step back now. I focus on my son and helping him with his some of his health issues. And I try to focus actually on helping people heal in a little different way now. I've focused for years on the physical, and now I feel it's important for me to focus more on the emotional and spiritual aspects of healing. So that's my life in a few minutes there for you, Scott. Hope that was
Yeah. And that's what really speaks to me is the spiritual side that you take and the meaning. And you wrote a book called Seeds of Hope,
Yes.
which I read, which is fantastic. And it's called Seeds of Hope, A Journey Through Medication and Madness Toward Meaning, right?
Mhm. Yes.
So I'd like for you, if you could possibly describe what does that meaning look like for you? I know that before I had gone through this whole process, I felt like I was living a very destitute life, that I was lacking meaning, I was lacking purpose. And ironically, it took being extremely ill for so long to derive a new sense of meaning in my life that I had been lacking for so long. So I'm
Yeah.
wondering what does that mean to you?
Yeah, I think a lot of people go through that where, and I apologize, you may hear my bird in the background. He's being annoying this morning. Um, a lot of people go through that. There's something about pain that kind of wakes you up, right? And and I've seen a lot of people who've gone through this process of withdrawal, and all of a sudden they realize, you know what, those things I thought were so important before, maybe they're not so important now, and they shift their lives in a lot of ways. And that's definitely something that I have discovered is that um, I was not I was not the person I thought I was in a lot of ways. I thought I knew who I was. I had been, like I said, I'd been through a lot in my life. Um, but there were parts of me that hadn't yet woken up, learned to connect to other human beings in the ways that I learned to do through this process, and learned that I had a lot more power than I thought I had in my life. I was a lot more capable. There were things that I need to do in this life that I didn't realize before, because I was just kind of going through the motions and doing what I was supposed to do, and living an okay life. It was good. I enjoyed my life well enough, but it didn't have that meaning that it has now, that sometimes can only come, I feel, when you're broken open. When you're broken, then, like Rumi says, that light can come in and you can receive that inspiration.
Is that, do you think that the biggest thing that you've taken from dealing with sort of this chronic injury or illness is finding that meaning in your life? Like what are the biggest lessons you've taken away from this?
Oh, there's so many. I think number one is the lesson I try to teach people from day one when they come to me and they're just in intense suffering. And they're like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? How do I fix this? And the first thing I say to people is accept, 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 let go. And let go of the old you and the old life, and trying to get back to that and recognize that you will never be the same. You're going to be different, but that can be a really, really good thing. And obviously, we all go through this process of, really, it's that grief process where at first you're kind of in denial, but then all of a sudden there's this rage, there's this anger that you have against these systems that all of a sudden you now realize. Of course, I had some of this understanding before, but that these systems are very corrupt, that you've given a lot of your power away to these authoritative voices, that now you realize you can't place all your trust in those. And I think the biggest takeaway for me and for others who do get past the anger point is you realize, oh, that power resides in me. I need to listen to my inner voice, my inner wisdom, my higher power, whatever you want to call it, because that's where truth resides. That's where the power to heal is. That's where the power is to help others to heal. And I need to stop giving that power away to these authorities that I'm told know more than I do on some level, you know.
And we're talking like doctors and big pharma and these
Yeah. The
so-called, yeah,
FDA, government agencies, whatever it is, it can be anything. It can even be a religious institution or an educational institution. All these things can be good on some level if we use them with the understanding that ultimately I have the ultimate say so in what is good and what is right in my life. And they don't have all the truth. They may have little bits of it, but not all of it. And once people are liberated in that way, then I feel that we can go on to heal and really become more of who we are meant to be. Because as we heal, truly, honestly, almost by a process of osmosis, then the people around us can heal, even in
yeah,
just obvious ways, right? Like with this meditation that I put out. If I hadn't learned these things, these skills for withdrawal, all of that, and gotten to a place where I was able to then extend that to others, then I wouldn't have been able to help other people to get to where they are. And I know you mentioned that you did that meditation recently
yeah.
and benefited from that.
Yeah, and just to sort of back up and sort of sort of give an explanation regarding the meditation. I hadn't been on Jocelyn's channel for a little while. I know you have kind of stopped posting
Yeah.
for some time, and I decided just to check it out. And I saw that she had meditation. I was like, oh, that's interesting. I mean, you never really done anything like that before, and it just says something about forgiveness. I was at that point in my life just a few weeks ago. I felt like I had a lot of anger built up. And so I thought, I was like, okay, I'll check this out. And it just spoke to me so well. And I realized that, when you have so much trauma in your life, there's going to be a lot of anger that goes along with that. And if you have that trauma built up in you and it's stored in you, it's almost kind of like a poison that just stays stored in your tissues, in your brain, everything.
Yeah.
It's like a cancer in a way, and it's gonna make it almost impossible for you to fully heal when you have that much anger built up inside of you. And when I did the meditation for the first time in a long time, I felt like I just had this weight off my back, and I was just like, man, this feels different to me. I feel like you're forgiving things that aren't even people at this point, where it's like you're forgiving these entities, these corporate entities, right? And it sounds so strange to think about that. But when you have so much anger built up towards what you've discovered to be this corporate world and all the corruption that goes on in it and everything, and it just leaves your head swimming and you feel so disoriented from this world that I sort of had this naive look at the view of the world before I got sick. And it was so hard leaving that sort of matrix and going into the harsh reality. Right. And that was such a terrible thing. I've talked to so many people who have had such a terrible transition to learning the truth and learning reality. And your meditation really spoke to me. So that's something I really want to do with you today, is do this meditation. And
Yeah.
and I think that this is something that could benefit everyone, not just someone with a psychotropic drug injury, but everybody, because everybody has those traumas stored up inside them. Everybody has that anger towards something or someone, right?
Yeah. Right.
So I was hoping that we could get into that perhaps now.
Sure.
There's a lot of rabbit holes we could get into on other things, but maybe we could leave that for a different day.
Sure.
So Joss, I'm going to let you take that away and let's
Okay.
get into it.
All right. Well, first of all, let's just take a couple of deep breaths. So take a deep breath in and let it out. And another deep breath in and out. And one more deep breath in, and we're going to hold it this time. Hold it. Set an intention for healing, whatever it is that you desire to heal at this moment. And let that out. Go ahead and close your eyes and rewind your life like you're looking at a movie. And rewind back to the last time when you felt a sense of peace and wellness. And see that part of your life. What did that feel like? And now rewind a little bit farther back to when you were much younger, to a time before you experienced a trauma that may have led to the point of illness or unwellness that you might be experiencing at this time. And see yourself in that moment. What does that feel like? Rewind even farther back to a time before you were even born. And you're in this space where there's just ultimate quiet and stillness. And you find yourself sitting on a bench. You're at a bus stop. You're waiting excitedly to come and have this life experience. And while you're there, someone approaches the bench, sits down next to you. You greet this person. And they ask you what it is that you want to learn from this mortal experience while you're there. You think about it for a moment, and you realize that you really want to learn about divine forgiveness. This person asks you, how are you going to learn that? And you tell them, I don't know, I guess someone will have to do something to me that is just so unforgivable that I will have to learn how to forgive that. And the more you think about it, you realize something, and you turn to the person next to you and say, will you be that person for me? After consideration, they look at you and say, yes, I will do that for you. And you thank that person. Thank you. Now we're going to go back forward into your life to a point in your life where you experienced something that somebody did to you that was really difficult, that made your life more difficult in some way, that you had to deal with. And look at that person. And what do you see in yourself that they did for you? How did that experience teach you something? How did you grow from that? And now look at this person, and if you feel comfortable, embrace them and tell them thank you. Thank you for teaching me this. Thank you for allowing me to have this opportunity to grow. Let's take a deep breath now and move forward to another experience in your life where somebody did something that was very hurtful or traumatizing. And once again, maybe you can just take a little step back and view that situation and view yourself. And how did what that person do ultimately teach you something? What is it that you could have learned? In what way? Was there any healing that took place or growing? or knowledge that was useful to you. Go ahead, just take a deep breath. Look this person in the eyes and tell them thank you. Thank you for what you've given me, this gift and this opportunity to learn. And for being my teacher. Thank you for playing this role in my life. I forgive you. I love you. And you can do this as many times as you need to. You can pause this meditation now and explore this even more until you feel like you've come to a place of peace with all these moments in your life that have led to where you are right now in some way. And you're ready to move on. And now I'd like to just take another minute to explore the ultimate forgiveness that needs to take place when we go through these experiences. And that's forgiving ourselves. Oftentimes, when we experience trauma, when we change in unexpected ways, we can look in the mirror and not like what we see. And sometimes we'll even be very cruel or harsh to ourselves, even in unconscious ways. And so I'd like for you to travel back again to a period of time when you were young, when you were a child, and look at that child and the understanding and the innocence that that younger version of you has. And how they're just trying to love and be loved. And this child stores all the memories that you've ever had. And everything that you experience physically is just this child's way of letting you know that they're trying to bring the truth up to your conscious mind, that they're trying to tell you what it is that you still need to work on and heal or feel in order to move on and grow and fulfill this mortal experience that you desire to have. And so look at this young version of yourself and ask if you can just place your hand on their head and caress stroke their head and their face, and tell yourself, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for all the ways that I ignored you and didn't listen to you or spoke harshly to you. I hear you now. I love you. You're worthy of love. And from now on, whenever I start to think that you and I aren't good enough, aren't able, aren't capable, whatever thoughts pop into my mind from here on out that say I can't, I don't deserve, I promise I'm going to be mindful of those thoughts. And I'm going to stop and listen to the truth that you have to tell me. And be thankful in that moment for what you're giving me, the health, the strength, the ability to be aware, to love another person, to function in whatever even limited ways I can function, and give thanks. Thank you for giving me these gifts and the gift of healing that I know you ultimately desire to give me. And I promise to express this love from here on out